Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a classic, downright legendary battle of wits from the tales of Gopal Bar. If you've ever wondered exactly how far someone will go to win a bet, or how sheer, hardwired human biology can completely outmaneuver absolute royal power, well, you're in the right place. We're going to look closely at a truly fascinating story where extreme physical endurance meets absolute psychological genius. Okay, let's dive into this. How is it actually possible to defeat a powerful king with just a single yawn? I mean, it sounds like an absolute riddle, right? No way that works in the real world. But as we'll see as we break down this source material, this seemingly impossible scenario is actually a masterclass in strategy, endurance, and knowing exactly how to exploit those deeply wired human reflexes we all have. So the whole thing kicks off with a remarkably relatable everyday problem. Gopal Bar finds himself in a really desperate financial crisis. He basically accidentally drops his very last coin from his waistband, and it rolls away, getting completely lost in the dust and clutter under his bed. We've all been there, right? But for Gopal, with an empty pocket, a whole household to run, and the very real fear of his wife's anger if he comes back empty-handed, well, he's totally out of options. His desperation literally forces him to march straight to the royal court to ask King Krishnachandra for a bailout. Now, the king isn't just going to open up the royal treasury and hand over the cash. He sets up these incredibly strict rules for a wager. So the crucial point is they have to spend the entire day together. During this time, Gopal has to do the exact opposite of whatever the king does. But here's the massive catch, the real kicker. To actually win, Gopal must somehow force the king to actively imitate him. And the stakes, they are absolutely monumental. If Gopal pulls it off, he gets double his monthly salary. But if he loses, he forfeits 5 whole months of pay. This isn't just some friendly game, it's a high-stakes psychological war. And this wager pushes Gopal way, way beyond the comfortable walls of the royal palace. As you can see, the trials map out this escalating journey, taking them out to the riverbank and eventually deep into the forest, with every single new location pushing Gopal closer and closer to his absolute physical breaking point. Just look at the stark physical contrast in their journeys here. The king starts off riding comfortably on a swift horse, while Gopal is forced to sprint behind him on foot. Then when they reach the river, the king and his minister take this incredibly secure, comfortable boat across the water. And Gopal, because he has to do the opposite, he's forced to dive in and literally swim across this treacherous, deep river, just to stay in the game. He's enduring immense physical suffering and exhaustion, while the royals are literally looking on from their boat, just laughing at his misery. But even after arriving at the opposite bank, completely drenched, totally out of breath, and with his stomach absolutely rumbling from hunger, Gopal's psychological endurance is just staggering. Take a look at this quote. He declares, "I will not accept defeat. Today I will return home with double my salary." He just outright refuses to break. The sheer determination radiating from that statement shows the king and us that Gopal is playing the long game, no matter what it costs him physically. Now, what's really brilliant here is how the king weaponizes basic human comfort. Once they finally reach the deep forest, the king decides to kick back and rest in the cool shade of a tree, while his minister brings him this amazing feast of fresh fruit. Because of those strict rules we talked about, Gopala is forced to stand completely upright in the blazing hot sun. And it gets worse. To avoid copying the king, he actually has to refuse the food, effectively starving himself while watching the king feast right in front of him. And as if the exhaustion, the heat, and the starvation weren't enough, the king suddenly spots an opportunity for the ultimate trap, a swarm of angry bees. The king notices this beehive and deliberately provokes a situation where he has to run away for safety. He knows exactly what this means for Gopal. It is a brilliantly ruthless lose-lose situation. If Gopal runs away from the bees to protect himself, he's copying the king's action, and he instantly loses the wager. So what does our determined protagonist actually do? He stands completely still. He literally just absorbs the bee stings. He dramatically declares, "Even if I die, I will not run away from here. I will never imitate the king." I mean, just imagine the sheer willpower required to stand your ground while being actively attacked by a swarm of bees, just to prove a point. He proves right then and there that his spirit is absolutely unbreakable. Which brings us to this incredible nail-biting juncture. How exactly does a man who is starving, completely exhausted, drenched from a river, and now covered in painful bee stings, manage to turn the tables on a comfortable, well-fed, and highly amused king? Gopal has been entirely on the defensive all day long, just absorbing punishment to stay alive in this game, but the tide is about to turn in a way the king never, ever saw coming. Gopal finally decides that enough is enough. He actively breaks his own cycle of physical suffering. He sits down, crosses his legs comfortably, and prepares his absolute masterstroke. He looks right at the king and confidently claims that he is about to perform an action that the king will have absolutely no choice but to imitate. He is boldly, confidently calling his shot right in the middle of the forest. And this brilliantly illustrates the biological loophole Gopal exploits: contagious yawning. It's this completely involuntary biological reflex triggered just by seeing, hearing, or sometimes even thinking about another person yawning. Gopal sits back, relaxes his exhausted body, and just lets out a massive, dramatic yawn. He knows for a fact that no matter how much royal power, wealth, or authority this king holds, he absolutely cannot override this deeply ingrained human reflex. The trap snaps shut instantly, and the king's reaction is just priceless. "What have I done? I yawned too. I knowingly imitated him." I absolutely love this quote because you can practically hear the royal defeat echoing in those words. The king's entire winning streak, his carefully orchestrated day of luxurious torment over Gopal, is completely shattered in a single second by a simple, undeniable biological reflex. So let's look at the aftermath of this incredible intellectual heist. The king, being true to his royal word, admits total defeat. He has to acknowledge that Gopal's wit hasn't rusted a single bit. Gopal is awarded double his monthly salary, instantly solving that dire financial crisis we started with. And honestly, perhaps most importantly for Gopal, he gets to return home with a gift, successfully appeasing his angry wife. His brilliant strategic mind saved the royal pride, sure, but it also saved his household peace. Ultimately, as Gopal returns to his village, he offers this really heartwarming perspective. He says, "Children grow up by imitating their elders. Sometimes imitation is a good thing." The local children see Gopal celebrating his massive victory, and they start happily dancing and copying him. It's a really beautiful shift in perspective, highlighting the innocent, developmental, and joyous side of the exact same behavior the king tried so fiercely to avoid all day long. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. What everyday actions are you imitating without even realizing it? You know, we all like to think we're always in complete conscious control of our actions, just like the king did. But as Gopal Bar proved so brilliantly out in that forest, sometimes our biology connects us in ways we simply can't resist. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep observing that fascinating world around you, and I'll see you in the next explainer.